Perfect. Okay. Oh my gosh. I am so excited because we have a really special guest joining us inside of our group today, the beautiful, lovely Ella Cook. Ella is I can't say favorite because I love all my clients. You and I have such a special bond, and it's been so beautiful getting to connect with her over gosh, it feels like it's been a few years now,
Yeah.
watching you on your journey. And I have her here today. She reached out because she wanted to purposely share her journey and her experience of really deepening into her coming of self and now meeting the love of her life and now traveling the world with him for over a year. It seems like it's been going on, and just share a little bit more about all the lessons that she's learned, all of the principles that she's really been able to embody from going on this deep dive of self-development work and learning really how to relax into love. So I'm so happy to have her here and getting to just share a little bit about her experience. And I really wanted to have her come on and speak to each of you because there's going to be so much overlap, right? No matter where you are on your journey right now, I know that these principles are all encompassing for all of us. And there's so many things that maybe you're either in the process of learning or have just learned or are yet to learn, right? And I think you're going to be able to see a lot of yourself in Ella. And I hope that she's here to just inspire you and show you what's possible for your own life, knowing that even if you haven't met the love of your life or haven't been able to really deepen into that place of depth with your relationship right now, that is still very much possible. And if she can do it and I can do it, then you can do it. So with that, I want to welcome Ella to our live here today, and we'll kick things off.
Amazing. Oh, thank you. And that just made my whole body like light up and tingle, and just I'm feeling all the good things being on this today. And I do think it will be helpful, mostly because I think, well, maybe it's just like interesting. I didn't know that so much of what I learned working with you and then beyond, how much, like, I think I was so very focused, especially initially, on, I wanted to meet someone. That was like why I started working with you. I was like, I want to meet someone. I'm sick of this crap situation. But what I didn't realize is that the things I would learn and the woman that I became through that process not only like attracted somebody, the exact man that I wanted to be with, but who I get to be in this relationship. And I think that's it didn't, I didn't know that at the time. I was like, and I think that I would, you and I were just talking like, what would I go back and tell my younger self? Like, the things that you're going to learn now, you're going to need them later. It's not just how do we, get to ourselves to this amazing place where we can get this great guy, but actually, like, I'm continuing every day to deepen into the things that I learned about myself, and really just to continue to hold that feminine space. And it is a lesson like every single day, but it's such a amazing lesson, and it every day gets me more curious as to like, how can I deepen more into it? How can I have more of it be like this? So
Yes.
yeah, I'm just going.
I want to stop you for a second because I'm going to kind of guide you and prompt you some questions because
Fab.
I think that'll really help our ladies be able to follow along. So I want to just start with like zooming way back to the beginning when you first found me. First off, yeah, telling them how you
The
found
internet. I want a love coach for badass, ambitious women. Google go. Literally what happened, Teal. There was 5 women that came up, and I went through all of their Instagrams and went, no, no, no. And then I was like, this is the one. There was like that mirror was like in the background. I was like, yes, like that's the goal. Whatever she's got going on, give me some of that.
And I really just think that speaks so much to the energetics, right? That I talk about and teach on so much. So much of our presence is energy. And you were able to feel that energy from me without me even saying anything or talking to you at all. And just realizing, yes, that feels right to me. So I love that. And so tell me a little bit about who was that woman when you first came to me and what she was really struggling with at that time.
I think like I just knew there was so much that I didn't understand about what was keeping me stuck. And that's always why I've sought out mentorship. I was really lonely and really sad. I felt awful about myself and my body, and I wasn't feeling I just wasn't attracting anybody that felt worthwhile to me. My value seemed to be being missed by everybody, and I felt overlooked, actually, is how I felt. And I felt Like I just had so much more and I wanted so much more for myself. I think that was like the biggest thing. And because of my relationship with coaching, I knew that I was so sure that I hadn't invested in something like this before. I'd invested in so many other areas, but I hadn't focused on this. And I was really just curious to see, because I'd seen so many shifts in so many other areas, what would happen if I jumped into this. I was just curious to see if that, because things were so rubbish. I was like, I don't think it's going to get worse. It could only get better. And you know what? I'm having some flashbacks to some of the first work we did together. And oh my God, actually, now that I think about it, I have come such a long way. I'm thinking about some of the dates I used to go on and what I would settle for. And it's honestly like, so who was that woman? She was just settling left, right, and center for things that were way below my energy. I mean, obviously they were a perfect match for my energy at the time, but yeah, just settling and very, very unhappy, kind of like feeling overlooked and just taking scraps, you know, bits and pieces here and there that were dished out by very non-committal men that I would always make great excuses for. I just remembering some of the homework that you gave me, or you suggested that I make men wait longer to have sex with me, right? I remember we had that. I was just thinking about how quickly I like filtered through like 5-6 men that week, where I was just like, oh, they're definitely like just crazy. I'm sorry to like bring that up first off the bat, because it's not actually that relevant in comparison to the other work that we did, but I'm just thinking about the types of men I used to give time to and how I don't even see those men anymore. And I remember feeling like there are no good men out there. There are no men for me. Definitely not someone that is going to be all the things that I want. And what was so mad, because it's crazy. I'm like, I don't see those men anymore. And I didn't see the man that I'm with now. And I meet lots of great men now, but I didn't see them then. And because I just wasn't attuned to it and I wasn't able to pick up on it. So yeah.
I love that you highlighted that, because that's something I talk about all the time, right? That we have to actually elevate our energy frequency. And a lot of times it feels like we have these blinders on, and women come to me all the time saying that, where are all the good men? I don't believe there's good men out there. So to hear you say that you literally went from being in that space to now being like, oh my God, I see good men all the time. And that's where I am too. I'm like, I see good men all the time. There's so many amazing, beautiful men out there, right? It really shows a testament to how much you've shifted internally.
What I also have noticed, which I love even more than that, is the men that I used to put up on a pedestal and be like, oh my God, if only a man like that would want to date a woman like me. I know so many of them quite well now from the type of life that I live, and God, I love my man so much more. Like that, I used to have a very warped perspective of like, you know, this ideal man that was the right fit for me. And it just wasn't true. It wasn't actually what I wanted. And I'm so grateful now because I'm of service to these men. My partner is of service to these men now in like a different way. And it's just the light bulb, like, you know, once you see, you can't unsee it. So I'm really
I love it. I love it. So yes, I hear that she was taking scraps. She was putting men on a pedestal. She was very much not in her place of power as a feminine woman, even though on the surface level, it seemed like you had your life together. You had a kick-ass career. You're living in Bali. You're living the dream life, right? Seeming like everything is going well. You seem like a very confident woman on the external, but internally there was a lot of insecurity, a lot of anxiety, a lot of second guessing and mental chatter. So now, like through this journey of going on this deep dive with me, what do you feel like have been some of those big lessons that you've learned?
Well, I think two things kind of happened for me to even be in the position that I was in to meet someone. And I think the first thing that the work obviously allowed me to do, I did a lot of deep healing with you around my father wounds, which I'm just like, honestly, since we got on this call, I'm just like full body, like vibrating. My buddy's like, yes, this is the right thing to do. Share all this stuff. I'm like, I'm doing it. Calm down. I went from like, I really want to meet someone to like, fuck, I want to go and live my life. And that biggest shift of like healing those wounds inside of me, where I wasn't trying to do things to fill those voids, but and this affected all of my areas of life and one of my, actually 3 big decisions. The second one was leaving the business that I was in with my business partner, which was also a relationship that wasn't serving me, even though it wasn't an intimate romantic relationship. It was the most important relationship in my life at the time. And that's why it took me so bloody long to meet Alan, because I had to get out of all of that and like sort all that out. And that took so long. But healing all of those things kind of put me in this place where I was like, well, now I'm not craving the attention of, you know, these men that are emotionally unavailable. What do I want to do with my life? Like,
yes.
I remember one of the things that prompted me to reach out to you is I remember you saying to me, I don't think, you know, you do you, Ella, but like, I don't think your dream man is hanging out in Bali. Like, I feel like my intuition is telling me to tell you to get out there and live your life. And I was like, I know you're probably right. And then like 2 weeks later, I was like, I'm moving to Mallorca. And then it took me like a year and a half to leave the country after that, because I had to really actually go through the process of letting go. But I think that was such a big shift for me, and it didn't happen overnight. But I think going through and doing the healing work, like doing that somatic work, doing that subconscious work, just, you know, when your thoughts change, your world changes. And it wasn't like, because everything else for me was like, what do I need to do? But this wasn't, it couldn't be that. And I think with working with you, it just, my kind of, my perspective just shifted. I stopped staring over here intently, hoping for attention, and just started thinking about what it was that I wanted to do. And I decided I was ready to leave Bali. I didn't want to be in this business anymore. And I wanted to go dancing around the world. And like, that's how I met Alan, like was just going off and doing that thing. I actually met him. This is the thing I didn't know, how quickly it would happen once all the things had lined up. That was a shock, almost inconveniently so. I hadn't even left for my global tour. And I met him and I was like, you're not part of the plan. But I rolled with it. And this another lesson, like for me, was if I want a man to emotionally open up to me, I have to emotionally open up to him. And it was one of the hardest things to do, because I met him and it was like, blew my socks off. Oh my God, amazing. Yes, this is everything I've wanted. And then I had to lean into it to make it into something real. And that probably took the most like out of my comfort zone feeling, where I said like, okay, I'm not going to do what I was going to do. I want to come to London and be with you. And that was like, I chose him, and I chose that. And that gesture from me to him showed him how much I really wanted him. And I think that because he'd been chasing me. And I think that I was so overwhelmed with that. And there'd been a little bit of me that was like, well, maybe I just want him because he wants me, but I still want to go off and do all the things. But I remember when I had all these options in front of me, I was like, all I really want to do is be with this man. Like, am I ready to like, you know, like be that vulnerable and like go for it? And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do it. And I think that even that day, like I had this crazy anxiety in my stomach till like, because I met him, we had 6 days together and then 5 weeks apart. And when I didn't have a flight booked to see him, I just had this awful anxiety in my body. And I didn't know what it was other than like the anxiety of just everything that I was experiencing. But I think it was that feeling that I hadn't really dived in, like I hadn't really committed. I was just like, oh, just see how it goes, see if he does the things. And it just felt wrong. And as soon as I opened up and like called him and was like, this is what I want, and his face was just like, everything felt fine again, because I'd honored like the true feelings. And I think all the men I've been dating before, I've been so afraid to open myself up emotionally. I expected it from them, right? I was like demanding, why aren't you, you know, but I wasn't volunteering that first, and because I was so afraid of being hurt. But
I want to pause you because there's so many good things here that you've just been sharing, and I want to like anchor those teaching
Go for it.
moments in. These are fabulous. And I know you have such a beautiful way of speaking. You would just probably go on for hours.
I'm grateful you're interrupting me. Yeah.
So first things that I'm hearing is that you were able to shift the focus off of leaning forward energy, right? That masculine energy, controlling, trying to drive, trying to feel that validation from men, and you were able to really pull back and lean back in your energy and start to put your focus back on yourself and what do I want? How do I fill up my cup? How do I make myself happy? How do I heal the cracks in myself so that I can become my own best lover first, right? And fall deeply, deeply in love with yourself and build that dream life for yourself, whether or not that man is in there, because there's so much of that conditioning, right? I'll be happy when I have the guy. I'll be happy when I make the $1 million. But you were able to go in and make yourself happy first and plan out this dream life to go salsa dancing around the world. Awesome. Amazing.
Doing that, by the way, but we'll get there.
And from that place, then boom, just like magic, he popped up.
Mm-hmm.
But the second part of it was recognizing that you had to really be able to listen to your heart and really not just go along with what your mind was telling you. Like, okay, this is the plan. This is how I execute the plan. Doesn't matter what comes into my life. I need to actually listen more to my heart. And I have seen you develop your intuition on such a deep level. And you have such an incredible gift, especially in that clairsentience of being able to feel what your body is speaking to you and what your spirit is speaking to you through your body's sensations. And the fact that you were able to listen to that and lean into that and give that more power than what your mind was saying was like, no, we have a plan and we need to leave Bali. We need to go to Mallorca. Again, speaks to being in full alignment with yourself. And that has to take precedent over anything, right? Because the mind will always try and keep us in this place of control. Even if, traveling the world seems like this big daunting thing, it still felt more safe than scrapping that plan and going off to
100%.
Run off with this amazing man that you just met for 5 days. And I even remember because you messaged me and you're like, oh my God, I think I met the one. And I was like, let's be cautious with this. Okay. Let's not get too over our heads. But you really had such a deep intuitive knowing that this was right. Yeah. And I love that you went with that and that you led with that. And then the third part of this teaching moment is that you really were able to lean into your vulnerability and open up that emotional space within you to actually tell him, yes, I care about you deeply and I'm going to shift my entire life to be with you, right? Most women probably would be so freaked out to do something like that because that's a really freaky thing to do, right? But you did it.
It was really scary.
You did it because, and even though you didn't know how he was going to respond, he could have been like, whoa, Ella, that's too much, right? But you knew that there was something real here and you were able to open up and be in that vulnerable space and he was able to meet you there. And that's what's allowed you guys to be able to step into this new life together. So I just want to honor all 3 of those massive milestones and massive self-growth moments that just show the depth of your character and how all of this has been playing out.
Well, thank you. But I also really appreciate you paraphrasing those back to me. It's really so beautiful to hear them distilled down in that way. Like it is, because it's true. And I think, one of the reasons I wanted to do this as well is for me is to, to really acknowledge how far it's come because, when you're caught up in it, I was caught up in it and I had hoped it was going to work out, but I didn't know that for sure. And I've taken some crazy leaps for love before. So, and I ran that risk of sharing with my friends and my family. But you know what? I shared with my mom. I called her when he'd left Bali and I was going up to something. I was in the car and I called her and I told her, Mom, I've met someone. She's like, because, she's heard this story before. My mom has so many photographs of men's Tinder profiles. And she asked me, she said to me something she's never said. She was like, right, before you launch into a big, long story about blah, blah, I've got questions. Are you willing to answer them? I was like, yep. Okay. She asked me like 3 or 4 questions because I told her a bit about him. And then she was like, okay. And I got to tell my story. And then I told her about the moment that we'd acknowledged that we loved each other and we'd fallen in love. And my mum burst into tears and she went, I'm so happy for you. And she was like, I know, you know, this is it, don't you? And I was like, I do. And she was like, I can feel that, you know. My mom's never spoken to me in that language before, but it felt really like woman to woman. She was like, I know that you know, and I'm comfortable in my knowing because I feel yours. And I think that's kind of to your point before about that intuitive feeling. I think I've been so worried about what others might think, or is it what society wants me to do? And I'm like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do, because that's all I've really got at the end of the day. And I've done everything that I nearly married someone. Like 5 years ago, I left a fiance that was like a great fit on paper, but wasn't what I wanted. And my Alan is not anything like what I thought I would want, and he's not for everyone. He's not, but he's so for me. And I think even introducing him to my friends, like I've been a bit nervous, and like some, it takes them a while, you know, but I've always gone for someone that would fit right in, you know, and is going to do what I want them to, and is going to like be compliant and won't rock the boat. And Alan just like rocks my boat every day, but in like all the
yeah, he does.
All the right way. That's probably why I'm so happy. We've had a great day. But I did want to talk to something. You taught me very specifically about clearing space in your life. And I remembered something quite poignant. I don't know if I ever shared it with you. And this could be interesting to explore, because I'd been in a very like open, kind of interesting relationship with a couple of guys where I've been exploring some like dominatrix sexuality stuff. And I had like a couple of different guys going on. I met this guy, and I was kind of seeing him and this other guy, and I decided that fuck the rules. If I'm doing things my way, I want two men in my life, and one of them's going to build me a house, and one of them's going to give me babies. And I had this whole, I was going through a vibe where I just really like threw out the rule book, and I was like, what is it that I want? And I entertained this for a while, and I actually felt quite close to this one guy. And I remember feeling, oh, like this is the closest thing since, you know, I've started on this journey that actually feels like it could work for me, because I was really in my power. I was sharing myself fully, and I was just having the best time. And he left, because most people do leave Bali. And we had like a bit of a long distance thing going, and it wasn't working for me, and he wasn't leaning in. I was getting pissed off, and I found myself trying to do and fix. And one day we were just over text, and without even really giving it a second thought, I was like, asked him for his commitment to being like showing up better in the relationship. And he gave me a wishy-washy answer. And I was like, well, I'm out then. And I felt in that moment, I've never made such an empowered decision just like that. It was like, I just knew, and this is what I hadn't had before I met you. I always second guess myself. You use those words. And I would always have let someone, they'd need to give me lots of reasons why not. Right. 1, why it was a good idea, and 20, why not? And I would still be hanging on to the one that it was. And what I noticed is that my world had started to shift, and this guy had given me lots of great reasons as to why he was someone to keep in my life, but it wasn't enough for me. And I just dropped him. And we've actually since spoke, and he said, one of my biggest regrets last year is that I let you go. And I was like, fucking damn straight, buddy. But in that moment, I was like, nah, I ain't got time for this. Like, this is, and even though it was so much for me to let go of, because it was the closest thing to anything that filled me up since I'd been on this journey, but I just knew intuitively to keep moving forward. And then I met Alan the next day. The next day he contacted me. Wow. And I knew when I got the message from him, because we matched on Tinder, and I got the full body chills from the message, and I looked at his picture and I was like, yeah. I was like, this is because of what I did yesterday. And I just knew that it was the case. So, and you told me clear a space in your drawer. And I think in my mind, even though I didn't like have the rational, I need to do it this way, I think by that stage, it was such an inbuilt muscle that I developed from practicing the letting go. And initially, man, you were helping me like untether from some like gnarly situations for like months. And it got faster and faster. So if anyone's watching this that feel like, I felt like I was not learning fast enough at the beginning. Like I just was not. But over time, it got easier and easier for me to make choices, because the quicker I let go of the things that weren't good for me, something else came in. And once I started seeing that that wasn't a phenomenon or a fluke, and that actually that was the process, I was like, bah, 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 bah. And then I flew into what I'm into now. So
I love that you're sharing this, because again, this goes into that whole letting go and surrendering. And I remember that you kept asking, well, how do I surrender? I know I need to do this, but I don't know how, and I don't know how
what
to
is
let
step
go.
one, step two?
And that is the hardest thing, right? Really surrendering, really letting go. Because again, it goes against the whole feeling safe in the ego of control and holding on. And really, what it comes down to is faith, right? Faith and belief that there is something greater out there, and greater version of you out there, that is trying to pull you forward. And it's almost like the current version of ourselves cannot exist in the vision of the future us that we want to be. And we literally almost have to let that version of ourselves die, which is what the ego's like, hell no, I'm not dying, right? It feels like a full-on death, but that's what you were doing. You were literally letting go of parts of yourself, letting go of ways of being, of ways you thought things had to be, or guys you thought you had to have in your life, and just fully surrendering into, I trust that no matter what happens, I'm just going to be truthful to myself and let everything else flow, right? And when you really clicked into that place of flow, like you said, it was just like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And I experience this even for myself too, constantly. It's a constant practice. This isn't like something easy. This is real mindset work and consistent mindset work. And as you keep leaning into new visions and bigger, dreams of what you want for your life, it comes up again and again and again to be revisited and to be practiced. But it gets easier and easier the more you do it. And then I think what you're recognizing and seeing is like, okay, this is kind of one of these life hacks where if I know that this is how life is, then I don't have to be scared by it, because I get to just realize and see that this is the process of life to up level, right? That I don't have to actually feel like this is the cap. This is actually just the ceiling that I get to transcend and break through to get me to the other side. And I see this happen over and over and over again when I work with women, right? It's like we see this other life that we want, and it feels so distant. I mean, the life we're living right now is insane. If early Ella told her now self that she would be literally traveling the world with the love of her life, salsa dancing and being a stepmom and all of this incredible stuff, right? Like, and living in multi-million-dollar homes to house sit and pet sit. How fun, right?
Making art, like my lifelong dream. I finally pursued
and
the career.
Making art. We haven't even talked about that yet, right? Like, that feels like such a stretch, but what you're sharing here, and what I've experienced and what I see women experience, is that we have to fully let go of the identity of who we currently are, and surrender and trust that to be able to get into that next life, it requires us to fully surrender and free fall, right? Which is why they call it falling into love, right? Because it does require a level of free fall and trust and faith, which is what is the scariest part. So I just love that you were able to emphasize that. And then as you made space in your life, he was
the lovely man. He's not gonna come and say hello. It's very hot here in the UK, and he's inappropriately dressed. But I'm gonna plug. I was worried that my
I want to check in real quick and just see anyone on live, if anyone has any questions or comments that are coming through. Looks like we have a few people on live watching. Yeah, if any ladies have any things that they're just noticing or want to comment in on from this whole experience, I just love being able to really connect with you. And I guess, we probably should wrap it up too. It's already been half an hour, but any other big takeaways, big things that you'd like to share for any ladies watching or listening to this?
I think I just want to, I'll briefly touch on my art, because I've just created a collection which is about feminine expression, and it's a walkthrough of the different feminine archetypes that have really resonated with me. And I think one of the, what I was kind of waffling on about when we first connected on this call was like, one of the things that I didn't realize was that how the things that I had leaned into to kind of get me to the place where I met Alan is like still continues to be the thing that deepens and strengthens our relationship. And I have to lean into and choose to lean into my femininity on a daily basis in no way that I thought it would look like, by the way. Like, I didn't understand that femininity and being in your feminine energy can feel and look different on different women. And what I've noticed is like Alan has a very strong masculine presence, and it doesn't, I don't actually come up against, it's just not where I'm at. It's just not where I'm at with him, was a lot of men would push me into that, or I would be in that energy. I'm just not with him. But what I find is if I ever hit a wall, I just have to let the fuck go. And I have to melt and let myself be open and let myself be held. And it is sometimes in the moment one of the hardest things for me to do. But again, I've like practiced it over and over again. And every time I relax and I let go of whatever anger is trying to come through, or whatever, it's actually control. It's always control. I'm trying to control him or the situation. The step family situation has been beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And ultimately, like, what I now tell him, like, I'm afraid, rather than like rah, 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 do. I say I'm trying to control that. I'm noticing that I'm trying to control the situation. It must be because I'm afraid. And as soon as I do that, everything shifts, because I'm sharing vulnerably about how I'm feeling. And I learned through this early on with him in our first couple of weeks that it was safe to do that. And now it's just our practice in this relationship to do it. And that's what I was kind of saying, like, the things that I learned to get me to a place where I was able to meet him have continued to serve me throughout this. And we've navigated some really challenging waters. And I think, like, you know, I put up a lot of walls initially in the first week that we met, and I was like, no, I'm not seeing you tonight. I saw you 4 days in a row. I'm not seeing you this evening. I have things to do for myself. And he was all like, come dancing. I was like, no. And then I'd be sitting there, and I remember I looked over and I was like, his charger, he'd left his charger at my house, and I was like, I should probably take his charger down to him. He probably needs that. It's really important. But it was like the same things. Like, I put all these stipulations. Well, if we see each other in Portugal, I need to have my own place because of blah, blah, blah. And I was like, everything was quite controlling to make sure that I was okay. And I think I've just learned that I'll be better than okay if I allow myself to be supported and be held and be nourished by not just him, but everyone else around me as well. And, you know, I let go of a lot of these identities of what I thought I was supposed to be. And it's been really hard. You and I have connected over this, like the last, you know, maybe 6 months before the last 6 months. And it's difficult to let go of what you thought you wanted to be, what I thought I wanted to be, to make space for the person that I am. And I'm just, honestly, TL, I'm happier than I could have ever imagined. Like, I really have met someone that like fully shares the same vision of life as me. Like, he wants all the same things that I want. And I know, so I'm super emotional. I know that the life that I've always wanted for myself is happening now. Like, it's happening. And we're designing it, him and I, every day. And that all he wants is for me to just be more of myself. And he's like, I know you're a lot and I love it. I'm like, yes. Thank God, because I always felt like I was too much for everybody. But I knew that when I met him. I walked in and he looked like he wanted to eat me. I remember thinking, he had this big and he's 6'2", he's like a big dude. But he just had this massive energy. And it was the first time I'd ever in my whole 34 years met someone where my energy and his, because, you know, when you meet men, you know it, right? You feel it instantly. And anyway, I've always done. And I remember when I traveled from Bali to Amsterdam to meet someone I'd met online, we'd like fallen in love digitally. But when I met him in person, my body was like, oh, no. That's a no. When I met Alan, my body was like, ah, and he was like, oh. And it's I'm very grateful. I'm just very grateful. Like, it's not easy, you know. I don't want to paint it up to all be like rainbows and butterflies and all the stuff, because I've had to do the work, you know. all that stuff that I learned with you, and before and after, you know, it is, I have to check in with myself every day to make sure that I'm happy, you know, and that I'm doing what I want, I'm speaking my truth, and I'm that this life is for me now that I have this man. You know, it's not about getting the man anymore, it's really still about living my truest life. And I think that's something that hopefully women will relate to, is like, when you do this work to get to that place, I trust that I've made a good choice with him, and I also trust that I will continue to make good choices. And I said to myself the whole time, look, you've met him. If this doesn't work out, we know what's queuing up behind him. And I don't say those things to myself every day now, because I've leaned more into this commitment every single day. But I think I have that. I don't have fear that anything will go wrong, because I think I've learned throughout this process that I'm supported. So it will all work out, you know.
That was the most beautiful thing I've heard you say. Oh my gosh. Like, I just feel so, so connected to you and your journey, and to see you this happy. It literally lights up my heart. Like, this is why I do the work that I do. This is my soul mission, is to help spread more love to the world, and to see this actively happening before my eyes from you and from so many other women. It's just, it makes me so, so fulfilled.
You're definitely doing what you're supposed to be here to do. And now Mama Life, you know, you've been an inspiration to me and continue to be. And I'm just so grateful, you know, for everything with you, with work, with our friendship, everything. It's really meant the world to me. And thank you for giving me some space to share my
Oh my gosh.
crazy, weird, amazing journey.
Absolutely, Ella. And I think just the last thing I want to touch on that you shared was really around the communication piece, right? You were able to drop into a deep emotional space within yourself, like you said, to allow yourself to be held emotionally by your man, which was able to allow him to step up and be in that masculine presence for you. Because it is so easy for us to just get into that place of like, we need to hold it all together, because that's what we've had to do our whole life. And to really be witnessed in that surrender, in that relaxing into your feelings and letting your man be that container to hold you, it makes them feel like a man, right? I can take care of my woman, I can hold my woman physically and emotionally. And it allows you to actually be able to drop in and relax. And that's when the heart bond is able to be built, right? Because the heart can't create a bond if you're in that place of holding yourself, because that holding yourself is actually energetically blocking.
Totally.
Fully let yourself open up and let him hold you. And that's what's creating this beautiful intimacy and bond. And from that place, being able to openly share, I am afraid. That is so powerful. I am scared. I am nervous. I have anxiety, right? I have insecurities. And for him to see you and witness you in that and still love you, right? Still love you because of your insecurities and your nervousness and your fears. Because guess what? He's got insecurities and nervousnesses and fears too. And what you just demonstrated there is that it is safe to do that. It is safe to go into those spaces.
And that's what he tells me. That's what he tells me. And because it's funny, it's like the chicken and egg. You don't really know what came first, but because of, I feel safe to drop into that. He can hold me. I mean, I've just been in his arms crying, like, I don't even know how many times, like, it's crazy. And he sees my vulnerability, and that makes him feel safe that he can do it too.
Yes.
And he can share. And then he knows, he's like, he said this to me in our first few weeks. He's like, I've never been with a woman that makes me feel as safe as you. Like, I didn't even know that this was a thing, like that this was possible. And everyone in his life is like, who is this man now? Like, everyone. Wow. He's like, we like hang out with, but he's like just fucking sharing. Just like all the time, just like, be a vulnerable man. Like, yes, Alan, you do you. And like, he's showing up better for himself and life in general because of it. So like, it is just a really beautiful, self-perpetuating loop as well.
Yes, yes. And that's something that he doesn't get to have from his guy friends, right? Nobody's telling him or giving him permission to be that. But now that he's able to bring that in, it's like we deepen relationships with everyone in our lives because of it.
And he's
So
a better father as well. I think that was one of, I've inherited these two stepchildren, another Ella, and you know, one of his goals, his dreams in life is to be a better father. And I help him do that, you know, and not by like, you need to do it this way, but by just holding space for, and I'm very maternal. I always have been. And I've just taken these two kids and I'm like, I don't know why the universe has given me you guys, but like, let's go. I was teaching little Ella the piano the other day when they were around, and he just watches me with them and watches me model that communication. And it is all the things that he said. He's like, I don't know how you do it, the way you just connect with their hearts. And it is just me and my like feminineness. I'm just present with them and I feel them, you know, especially as a little boy. He's very sensitive and I can pick up on things that Alan can't. And he's like, how do you, and he watches that and sees it. And obviously he's a guy and is not going to have that same thing, but he sees how I experience the world. And I know that he's learned through that. And I didn't realize how much we have as women to teach men in that way. Like
yes.
I didn't know how, this is how healing that has been, not just for him, but his whole world around him, all the other men, dad, like everything that's been going on has just been, I'm like, this is the antidote. It's actually the antidote.
Yes, it's the divine feminine awakened. The divine feminine awakened. Oh, it channels to him and it channels to the children. And that's the thing, right? Is the children are picking up and watching and observing these interactions and the ways that your energy is flowing and the way his energy is flowing. And you are literally creating a ripple effect now. The work that you did to heal yourself and reshift all of your family dynamics, right? And patterns is now going to have a ripple effect that's going to massively impact their lives, their relationships, their children. Like this doesn't just stop with you having a great life. Yeah. That's what makes me just like seriously come alive, because this is like massive ripple effects out to everybody for future generations to come. You are literally recreating the ways that people relate to each other. So
pretty big stuff, Jill. Pretty big stuff.
I'm going to wrap it up because I think that is just a great note to end on. And again, Ella, I'm just, Charlie, are you wanting to talk too? I know he just wants to be in my energy presence all the time. I just wanted to say thank you again for coming on and sharing. And to everyone watching and listening, just let this be something that you really sit with and let it land, right? If there's any triggers or feelings that are coming up right now, that's like, oh, well, that's great for her, but not for me. Just listen to that and notice that that is actually something to be addressed, right? It is not a limitation. It is actually an activation. Triggers or activations, and lean into those. Don't let them push you down or make you feel inferior, right? Ella has been in the same spot. I have been in the same spot. So many women have been in the same spot, and it is an activator. It's an invitation. And with that, I want to invite any women that are feeling inspired to reach out to me and just hop on a quick 30-minute call to get to know each other and just see if this is something that you want to explore more deeply. Because I am so, as you can tell, inspired and passionate about the work that I do. And
do it, ladies, do it. Do it.
I do what I do.
Do it right now. Like, just do the work with Teal. It's literally, God, just do it. I can't. Sorry, Teal.
And also with that, I'm taking applications right now for my next round of the Attraction Academy, which is my group coaching program where I take 5 women on an in-depth journey to fully activate that divine feminine within them and build that healthy foundation for a relationship, whether you're in a relationship or want to call in that relationship. So if that's something you're interested in exploring, we can explore that. I'm also going to be hosting just a really quick 1-hour Speak to His Heart communications workshop this coming Saturday. So if anyone is interested in that and wants to just kind of get some hands-on skills for how to deepen your communication and learn a little bit more about how to be able to open up that vulnerability for yourself and with your partner, I'll leave the link down so you can sign up for that as well. But Ella, thank you so much for being here today. And I just can't wait to keep seeing what you keep creating and building together and co-creating in this now beautiful spiritual evolving partnership, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I've just had a lot of fun with you today as well. It's really turned me on being here. Like, yeah, we're going tango dancing now. Alan and I, we're going to a tango class. So
oh, so fun. So fun. Amazing. All right, love. I will talk with you soon. And thanks, everyone.